Hey everybody, and thanks for joining me again for Crazy Day with Cobras. We last finished with chapter 6, and Annie had just gotten gifted the elephant that tried to escape the parade by the Great Mogul, and they're trying to help the elephant get back to the wild. They got their Emerald Rose, they were on their way back to the Magic Treehouse, but now they have to help the elephant get back to the wild. So that's where we finished, and we're on chapter 7, which is titled Something Very Weird. Her trunk high in the air, Morning Breeze kept sniffing the hot wind. "We'll get her away from here," Jack said to Annie. "Then you and I can walk back to the treehouse." "Great," said Annie. "Go!" Jack yelled again at the elephant. "Go home! Go home!" He looked over his shoulder. He was afraid the Great Mogul might change his mind and send his guards after them. Morning Breeze let out a long, deep rumble and flapped her ears, as if she finally heard a distant call or caught a special scent. Her rumbling cries grew louder and louder. "Rrrr." She lumbered away from the drawbridge of the Red Fort. Jack was sure the elephant would start down the street filled with horses and ox carts, but Morning Breeze headed up the other street, the one that went through the bazaar. "No, go the other way!" cried Jack. The elephant began to run. Her flat, oval feet thumped against the road as she headed toward the tents and stalls of the bazaar. The street was crowded with merchants and shoppers. Bearded men in colorful coats and women in outfits that completely hid their faces and bodies. "Watch out, everyone!" Annie cried. As the elephant ran between the busy stalls, everyone scrambled out of her way. Sorry, yelled Jack. "Rogue elephant!" a banana seller shouted. Sorry, Jack kept shouting. Morning Breeze knocked over wooden poles that supported white tents. The tents collapsed onto burlap bags filled with figs, rice, and peas. She knocked over baskets of lemons, oranges, and pineapples. Angry merchants yelled and shook their fists. "She's from the wild, she can't help it," Annie cried. Sorry, Jack said. Morning Breeze pulled down hanging silk shawls and carpets with her trunk. The silk merchant shouted with rage. He and the other sellers grabbed sticks and charged at the elephant. Jack and Annie scrunched down in their small straw carriage. "Hurry! Go!" Jack shouted at Morning Breeze. With the merchants all chasing after her, Morning Breeze bolted from the bazaar. She started down a narrow, pebbled road that soon became a dirt path. She left the bearded merchants shouting angrily in the dust. Morning Breeze kept running down the path, passing farms with small mud huts. Sheep and goats bleated and scuttled out of her way. Chickens clucked and scattered. Her bells jangling wildly, the elephant clomped past women and girls tending outdoor cooking fires. She lumbered past men and boys unloading hay from wooden carts. "Hi, excuse us," Annie yelled, waving. Jack tried to smile as he clung to the sides of the straw carriage. No one smiled or waved back. Everyone stared in shock as the elephant thundered by. Morning Breeze ran to the end of the dirt path, but she didn't stop there. She kept running, cutting her own path through a sun-scorched field. Jack felt as if they were riding a big gray ship on waves of tall yellow grass. "This is fun," said Annie. "Not really," thought Jack. Where in the world were they going? A million insects hummed and buzzed. Butterflies and dragonflies darted about. The elephant burst from the sea of grass and charged into a scrubby forest. As she plowed through shrubs and trees, birds cawed and flapped out of the brush. "Okay, slow down, Morning Breeze," yelled Jack. "You're back in the wild, so you can let us off now. We need to..." Before he could finish, the elephant lifted her trunk and let out a loud shriek. She reared up on her hind legs. Jack and Annie tumbled out of the carriage. They slid down the elephant's back and fell onto the ground. Morning Breeze shrieked again and tore away through the forest. Jack and Annie lay in the dirt. They heard the elephant trampling plants and crashing through bushes. They heard her bells jangling. Then the sounds faded away. "Are you okay?" Annie asked. "Yeah," said Jack, "but that wasn't very polite of her." Annie laughed. "Well, you asked her to let us off," she said. "Yeah, but not dump us off," said Jack. He waved away flies and slapped at mosquitoes. He felt sweaty and thirsty and exhausted. "I wonder how long it will take us to get back to the treehouse." "I don't know. Let's just start retracing our steps," said Annie. Jack and Annie stood up and brushed the dirt off their coats. "Hey, where's your bag?" said Annie. "My bag?" said Jack. Where was it? He whirled around. He saw it lying in the grass. There, he said. He hurried to his bag and picked it up. It was open. Oh no! He reached in and pulled out the research book, the blue bottle, and Teddy and Kathleen's note. He searched frantically for the emerald rose. I don't believe it. The emerald's missing, cried Jack. It must have slipped out when we fell off Morning Breeze, said Annie. We'll find it. It has to be here somewhere. Jack shoved everything back into his bag. Then he and Annie got down on their hands and knees. Jack looked intently at the forest undergrowth, the dried vegetation, sticks, clumps of dirt, and rotten leaves. I can't believe this, said Jack. They had been so close to returning home. Their mission done. Now they were stuck in the middle of nowhere, and the emerald rose was missing. I don't see it. It's not here. Maybe it fell out of the bazaar when... Bingo, said Annie. There it is. Where? Said Jack. There, Annie said, pointing. Jack saw it. The emerald rose glittered like a tiny green light in a small sunlit clearing. It was lying next to a mound of earth and dead leaves. Yes, said Jack. He and Annie scrambled to their feet and headed for the mound. But when they got closer, Annie grabbed his arm. Wait, there's something weird happening there, she whispered. Very weird. See? What? Where? Said Jack. Annie pointed to the mound. Something very weird was happening. The earth and leaves seemed to be moving. Then Jack saw speckled yellow bands and 2 shiny black eyes. Jack gasped. Oh no, he whispered. A king cobra! Oh my goodness, that must be why it's called A Crazy Day with Cobras. Now that was the end of chapter 7, and that was a very wild ride. So, now we're at chapter 8, and it's called Shh. Okay. The king cobra circled the leafy mound. Its skin was olive brown, the color of dead leaves. It had speckled yellow bands that ran around its scaly body. Back up, go slow, Jack whispered to Annie. Jack picked up his bag, and they quietly stepped backward until they got to the edge of the clearing. Now run! Jack and Annie took off. Clutching his bag, Jack ran with little steps, trying not to lose his pointy slippers. After about 100 yards, Annie came to a halt. Stop! She grabbed Jack's arm. We shouldn't get too far away. Why not? Said Jack. Penny, said Annie. We have to get the emerald for Penny. Right, said Jack. Okay. He took a deep breath. First, we have to get calm. Jack took another deep breath. Then he pulled out the research book. Okay, let's read about cobras. Jack opened the book and found a section about Indian wildlife. He read, the king cobra is one of the only snakes known to make a nest for its eggs. The nest is made of a mound of dead leaves. The cobra's scaly skin is the same color as the leaves, a good example of natural camouflage. So, that mound of leaves was its nest, said Jack, and the cobra was probably a mother snake guarding her eggs. How does that information help us, said Annie. It doesn't, said Jack. He went on. King cobras cannot hear, but they have excellent vision and can feel vibrations. They will attack anything they see that gets too close to their nest. That's bad news, said Annie. Yeah, really bad news, said Jack. He kept reading. When threatened, the king cobra flattens its neck into a hood. A single bite from the snake contains enough venom to kill 20 men or a large elephant. Whoa, said Annie. That must be why Morning Breeze panicked and ran away. Jack closed the book. He shook his head. I don't see how we can possibly get close to that nest, he said. Then there's no way we can get an emerald rose for Penny, said Annie, unless we go back to the Great Mogul and ask for another one. And that's not going to happen, said Jack. Then how could we save Penny? Asked Annie. Think of Penny. Jack thought about Penny. He would do anything for her. Okay, there might be a way we could get the emerald rose. What if we were really small? Yes, said Annie. The cobra can't hear us, right? Said Jack. She can only see us and feel vibrations. So if we make ourselves small, maybe we can sneak back and get the emerald without being seen. Yes, said Annie. Jack reached into his bag and pulled out the blue bottle. He and Annie both stared at it. So, how many sips should we take? 1 for 10 minutes? Annie shook her head. 2 for 20. Okay. Jack took a deep breath. But just so you know, when we get small, everything else will be huge, like flies and spiders and... Spiders? Annie said in a small voice. Yeah, said Jack. Hey, you know what? You don't have to do this. I can do it by myself. It only takes 1 person to get the emerald. No, I'll go. You stay, said Annie. No way, said Jack. We'll both go. Good, said Annie. Jack held the bottle up to his lips. Okay, he said, 2 sips. Then he took 2 quick sips and handed the bottle to Annie. Jack felt dizzy. He closed his eyes and hugged himself. He felt as if he were falling through a hole. Shh. Psst. Suddenly, the forest was filled with chirping, whirring, crunching, and squeaking. Oh, wow, whispered Annie. Open your eyes. Jack opened his eyes. He and Annie were both small. Very small. Their clothes and shoes and Jack's bag were all small, too. Oh, man, we got really small, said Jack. He looked around at the grass and the weeds and the mushrooms. They were all taller than he was. I think we shrunk to about 6 or 8 inches. Close to the ground, the scrubby forest was awake and alive, filled with the ripe smells of earth, noisy insect sounds, and the rustling and whispering of grasses and weeds. The dirt glittered as if sprinkled with flecks of silver. It's really beautiful, said Annie. Yeah, said Jack. Wildflowers looked like elegant and luminous umbrellas with pale pink petals and silvery leaves. Berries were the size of apples. Look up, said Annie. Wow, said Jack. The tall trees of the forest were like skyscrapers. It was hard to see where they ended. Whoop! Something plopped down in the dirt beside Jack. Ah! Jack and Annie grabbed each other in terror. It was a giant insect as long as Jack's arm. It had a flat brown body, 6 legs, and 2 sets of wings. It looked at them with huge goggle-like eyes. It waved its antenna and crept forward. Ah! Jack and Annie stumbled backward. The giant bug stopped. Then it rubbed its front wings together. The forest erupted with a shrill chirping. Creakle, creakle, creakle. Jack covered his ears and laughed. The giant insect was a cricket. He knew a cricket wouldn't hurt them. The cricket pushed off the ground with its long hind legs and leapt into the brush. Look, said Annie, glancing up. A giant golden yellow butterfly hovered above her. As if Annie were a flower, the butterfly touched down lightly on her head and opened its wings. Annie held her breath. She didn't move a muscle. She looked like she was wearing a wide yellow hat. The butterfly closed its wings, then opened them up with a whispery sound, fluttered deeper into the forest. Bzz, bzz. A gigantic bee circled above Jack. Whoa, keep moving, buddy, Jack said, ducking and waving his hands. We're not flowers. The bee buzzed lazily away. Hey, we better hurry and get our emerald before we become our real size again, Annie said. Oh, right, said Jack. Which way? Asked Annie. Jack looked around. It was hard to tell where they were. I remember the emerald was shining in the sunlight. It looks sunny over there, said Annie. She pointed to a clearing. So, let's creep through the shade toward the light, said Jack. Remember, the cobra can't hear us, but she can see and feel our vibrations. We have to stay hidden and step lightly. Hey, I wonder where the dad is, said Annie. Don't ask, Jack said. Don't think about it. We have enough to worry about. Come on, let's go. He and Annie crouched down and started creeping toward the sunlight. Very cool. Those were 2 very cool chapters. They ran into the cobras, they lost the emerald, and then they made themselves very small so they could sneak in and get it. I wonder, though, if the emerald might be too big and heavy for them being so small to take back. Very interesting. Well, I guess you'll have to check back tomorrow for chapters 9 and 10. Thanks for joining me. Bye.